Regardless of which level you want to be at, regardless of how you define success, keeping score is vital. As we get to this time of year, I start taking score of the things in my life and my business. So I think you should be keeping score throughout all of your life, not just in business. Welcome to this week's episode of the Your Practice Mastered podcast. My name is Richard James, and we're going to be revealing to you today the importance of keeping score to build a successful law firm. We'll unpack why it's important to keep score and some guidelines and tips on what specific things you should be scoring as you build your law firm and fundamentally build the systems that run your law firm. But before we go there, we have to define this concept called success. So if you've been around here at all, you know that I teach about the 4 levels of law firm ownership. Level 1 is keep it small, keep it all. That's the best version of that level. You're doing less than roughly $1 million, depending on practice area and gross revenues. You're keeping definitely north of 40%, hopefully 50, 60% of that to the bottom line to the owner's benefit. And you don't have to work 90 hours a week to do that. You have a reasonably balanced life. If that's not the case and you're in level 1 doing less than $1 million and you're not keeping the profitability or you're ridiculously out of balance, then we got to fix that. But it's a choice to be able to keep it small and keep it all. Then you could decide to grow to the CEO level where you're at $3 million so that we have enough revenue that drops bottom line profits that we can reinvest into replacing you in all the roles. And you'll no longer do the work. You'll just raise up other leaders to lead the teams that then do the work. And your business is all about building these leaders. And that's your primary goal. And then if you choose to go beyond that to the investor level where you someday sell your firm to another firm that acquires most of it, you keep some of it because you want to continue to profit as the firm grows and you want to participate someday in what we call a roll-up model through private equity who's now entering into these MSO, managed service organizations, where we're actually operating the law firms in a group setting and we're outsourcing this to a private equity. And if that's something you want to do, great, but can't get there till I get you to level 3. And I can't get you to level 3 until you traverse through level 2, which we lovingly call hell, because that's the time when you don't have enough revenue to replace yourself in all the roles, and you still have to make sure the work gets done, the leads come in, and you have to try to grow as quickly as you can through this from a revenue perspective. So you got to maximize advertising sales, and you've got to maximize client satisfaction as well as workflow, simultaneously building your leaders and building your leadership strategy and style. And so it's going to feel like heavy lifting during this period, but once you get through it to the other side, you get to the point where other people can start running your firm for you. Now, these are just guidelines as to these numbers, and there's no wrong answer. If you want to keep it small, keep it all, great. But regardless of which level you want to be at, regardless of how you define success, keeping score is vital. Hey, listen, if you'd like to learn more about keeping score and the things that you need to keep score about in your firm, go ahead and click on the link below. We'd be happy to walk alongside of you and help you understand with our free tools and resources exactly where you should be keeping score and what that looks like. We're at the end of the year when I'm recording this. And as we get to this time of year, I start taking score of the things in my life and my business. So I think you should be keeping score throughout all of your life, not just in business. I can look back at my life for the year and I could say, oh, where did I invest my time and what am I going to do going forward this year? How am I going to make changes accordingly? I try to increase where I want to increase and decrease the areas that I don't want in my life. And so the same is true in business. So if we look at this law firm success scoreboard and we take a look at what it takes for you to be successful in your law firm, what do you have to keep score of? Well, first we have to make sure we look at the macro numbers, right? So in the macro, we have 4 primary pipelines: the new client attraction pipeline, the workflow pipeline, the profit pipeline, and the talent pipeline, right? So these are the 4 primary pipelines, and depending on where you are will depend on how much of this you're keeping score on. But suffice it to say, for new client attraction, we have to be paying attention to the PCLC on at least a weekly basis, which means we need to be looking at, qualified leads, appointments set, shows, hires, and then paid in fulls. This comes into the profit pipeline under the paid in fulls. And then we have to be looking at the conversions between these, the set rate, show rate, hire rate, right? Even qualified lead rate. And behind this, We have to be looking at which lead sources are performing better than others. And we have to be keeping score about this throughout the course of the year. And we should be doing this on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And then we should be able to say, okay, for the year, when I look through this and I say, oh, here's what we've got for the PCLC, I can look back and I can compare year over year. I can compare quarter over quarter. I can compare month over month. And it helps me understand if we're moving in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, once you get these things as efficient as they need to be, that's as efficient as they're going to be. It's not worth spending more time on them to get them to go from 68% to 70% per se, because that's not where the best time is spent. And that's in the new client attraction pipeline. But then you talk about the workflow pipeline, right? And the workflow pipeline, interestingly enough, also has its own PCLC, Perfect Client Lifecycle. And that PCLC from there is going to be onboarding. And then from onboarding, most of you have some sort of document collection. And then you have some sort of petitions that are probably having to be prepared of some sort, or documents that have to be prepared from the documents the client gave you. And then you have some sort of petition review of some sort internally, right? And then from there, you have this signing appointment. And then you likely have some sort of court situation, hearing otherwise, depending on the practice area. Maybe you have your own version, but these should be like measured with conversions between each, right? And each one of these have these conversion points, and you should be keeping score as to how we're doing in each one of these particular areas. Generally speaking, like on a macro level, how many new clients did we get this year in 2025 versus 2024, right? How do we do with gross revenues? How did we do with net incomes? Then what about number of team members? We have number of staff, and we can start to look deeper at payroll, right? And you can start keeping score, paying attention to what's happening. I met with a firm not long ago that they're like, hey, Rich, we made all this money last year. We're not making anything this year. And I looked at their payroll, and their payroll was up 50%, but their gross revenues were up 10%, and their net incomes were down considerably, losing money. Why? Because they had their payroll get out of control, because they didn't keep score. So what else do you have to keep track of? Well, when you look through your profit pipeline, we have to be paying attention to collections, on plan versus off plan, this year over last year. How much do we have in receivables this year over last year? You should be looking at your talent pipeline depending on where you are. And talent is one of those areas that really does come down to, what are you choosing to be? Are you choosing to be level one? Keep it small. And likely, if that's the case, you're not adding a lot of talent. You're just keeping the talent you have really, really happy. If you're at the level 3 and moving towards level 4, talent acquisition is a really big deal. Maybe even a level 2, it actually is a big deal because you don't have the right team member and you're trying to start to replace yourself in those roles. And so raising people up from the farm team you've built, or adding new people to the farm team, or when needed, going outside of the family and recruiting from in, paying attention to what your goals are for this year. We've already written down how we've evaluated all of our team for 2025. We evaluated how they did, how we compensated them. And then in 2026, we've built our plan out for what is that going to look like? What do we think we're going to need staff-wise for 2026 based on our plan? So when you look at your scoreboard and you look at the 4 primary pipelines, this is where your attention is, right? And so keeping score matters. If I can get you in the habit of keeping score in your own life, you'll start to keep score in your law firm. And I want you to keep score against yourself, not against your peers, not against your competition. Comparison is the thief of joy. All that's relevant is you and your firm and what's going on in your life and what's going on in your firm's life. Don't compare yourself to other people, and don't compare yourself to other firms. Just compare yourself to yourself. Compare your firm to your firm. And all of the numbers that you have that you started keeping score this year, compare them to last year. If you do, you're going to start tracking things that are going to become very evident to you where the changes need to happen, both in your personal life as well as in your law firm. If you create a better personal life, you'll have more strength and endurance to manage and grow your law firm. If you create a better law firm, it will support the lifestyle you want so you can maintain a better personal life. I hope this makes sense to you. I hope it helps you grow into 2026. This is my thinking as we're going into 2026. Where can I improve my score against myself next year? Let's go build your law firm better, one scorecard at a time. Hey, listen, if you'd like to learn more about keeping score and the things that you need to keep score about in your firm, go ahead and click on the link below. We'd be happy to walk alongside of you and help you understand with our free tools and resources exactly where you should be keeping score and what that looks like. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment if you have any questions here. We really do read the comments and we really do pay attention to what you have to say, as well as those subscriber numbers help us know if we're on the right track and we're providing you content that you'd like more of.